You don't fall in love. You fall into patterns. And maybe when you hear that, something inside you shifts, not just understanding it, but feeling it in a way that is hard to explain. Because somewhere deep down, you already know this is true. This isn't your first heartbreak. It didn't just happen once or twice. It has happened in different forms, with different people in different phases of your life. But somehow, the feeling is always the same. It always begins like something special, something rare, something you believe will finally be different. You meet someone, and there's an instant connection. It feels effortless, almost magical. Conversations flow, emotions deepen quickly, and suddenly, your world begins to revolve around them. Their presence feels like warmth. Their attention feels like validation. Their messages become the highlight of your day, and their silence becomes something you overthink. And in those moments, you convince yourself, this is it. This is love. This time it's real. But slowly, almost without you noticing, something begins to shift. The energy changes. The effort becomes one-sided. The clarity fades into confusion. The same person who once made you feel seen starts making you feel uncertain. And you don't understand why. You replay everything in your head. Every conversation, every word, every small change in tone. You begin to question yourself. You try harder. You give more. You become more patient, more understanding, more available, because somewhere inside you, losing them doesn't just feel like losing a person. It feels like losing something deeper, something emotional, something unfinished. And then one day it ends, or maybe it doesn't end clearly. Maybe it just slowly fades away. Maybe they leave, or maybe they stay, but emotionally disconnect. And you're left with silence, confusion, and questions that never really get answered. What did I do wrong? Why does this always happen to me? Why do I keep loving the same kind of person? Why does love always feel so intense in the beginning and so painful in the end? And then comes the most painful question of all, the one you don't always say out loud. Why am I never enough? But what if none of those questions are the right ones? What if the real question is not why this keeps happening to you, but why you keep choosing it without even realizing it? Because the truth is, you are not just experiencing love. You are participating in a pattern that existed long before this person came into your life, a pattern that has been quietly shaping your attraction, your emotional responses, your expectations, and your choices for years. And the most unsettling part is you don't even see it happening. It feels like love. It feels real. It feels intense. But intensity is not always truth. Sometimes, intensity is just familiarity in disguise. Think about it. Why do you feel drawn to certain people instantly? Why does your heart race around someone you barely know? Why does it feel like you've known them before, even when you haven't? That feeling is not random. It's recognition, not of the person, but of the emotional pattern they represent. Your mind is recognizing something it has experienced before, something unfinished, something unresolved. And instead of avoiding it, you move toward it. Because the human mind does not always choose what is right. It chooses what is familiar, even if that familiarity hurts you. That's why someone kind, stable, and emotionally available can feel boring, while someone distant, unpredictable, and emotionally confusing pulls you in completely. Because chaos feels familiar. Uncertainty feels familiar. Emotional highs and lows feel familiar. And your mind mistakes familiarity for love. So you don't fall in love. You fall into something you already know, a pattern. And that is why it hurts so deeply, not just because of the person, but because every time it happens, it touches something older, something deeper inside you, something that has been waiting to be understood. That's why the pain feels so intense. That's why it's so hard to let go. That's why even when you know it's not right, you still feel pulled toward it. Because you're not just attached to the person. You're attached to the emotional experience. And that experience is connected to your past. To understand this, you have to go back, not to your last relationship, but to your earliest experiences of love. As a child, you didn't learn love through logic. You learned it through feeling, through attention, presence, emotional safety, and connection. But what happens when that experience is incomplete? A child who felt ignored grows into someone who chases attention. A child who felt unseen becomes someone who constantly seeks validation. A child who experienced inconsistency begins to associate love with unpredictability. And without realizing it, you carry these emotional imprints into your adult relationships. You don't consciously choose people who will hurt you. You choose what feels familiar to your nervous system, even if that familiarity comes with pain. The truth is, you are not attracted to people. You are attracted to unresolved emotions. That instant connection you feel is not always love. Sometimes it is your past recognizing itself in the present. And this is how the pattern begins. You meet someone, feel something intense, and convince yourself that this time it's different. But slowly, the same dynamics appear. The same emotional distance, the same confusion, the same imbalance. And you start trying harder. You give more. You wait longer. You tolerate more than you should. Why? Because deep inside you believe that if you can make this work, you will finally feel complete. But your mind is not looking for happiness. It is looking for completion. It wants to fix the past. It wants to rewrite the story. So it places you in the same emotional situation again, hoping that this time the ending will be different. But it isn't, because the pattern is still unconscious. And unconscious patterns don't change. They repeat. It's not love. It's a loop. And then one day something begins to shift. You start to notice it. At first it feels uncomfortable. Then it becomes undeniable. You begin to question everything. Why does this keep happening? Why do I always end up here? And the answer is painful, because it's not just about them. It never was. It's about something inside you, something unfinished, something unhealed. And this realization can break you, because it forces you to see the truth. You were not just hurt, you were also repeating. It was never just them. It was something within you trying to complete itself. But this is also where your power begins, because awareness changes everything. The moment you see the pattern, you're no longer completely controlled by it. Now you can pause. Now you can question. Now you can choose. Before you fall into something again, you can ask yourself, is this love or is this familiar pain? Am I choosing this person or chasing feeling? Am I responding to the present moment or reacting from my past? And slowly, something begins to shift inside you. You stop chasing intensity. You stop confusing anxiety with connection. You stop romanticizing emotional chaos. And for the first time, you begin to choose consciously. And that's when you start to understand what real love actually is. Real love is not chaotic. It is calm. It does not create anxiety. It creates peace. It does not confuse you. It gives you clarity. It does not make you chase. It meets you where you are. Attachment says, I need you. Love says, I choose you. Attachment is driven by fear. Fear of losing. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. Love, on the other hand, is rooted in freedom. And here is the truth most people struggle to accept. Real love may feel unfamiliar because it does not match your past. It does not trigger your wounds. It does not recreate your emotional patterns. And that is why many people walk away from it, because it feels too calm, too simple, too safe. But that is not boredom, that is healing. So now, the question is not whether you'll find love. The real question is, will you recognize it when it does not feel like your past? Will you choose peace over intensity, awareness over patterns? Because until you do, you will keep repeating. You will keep chasing. You will keep loving the same person in different bodies. And maybe for the first time, you are beginning to understand yourself a little more clearly. If something in this video truly touched you, you can leave a like. It helps this message reach people who need it. And if you want to keep exploring these patterns and slowly break free from them, you can subscribe. I'll be here with more conversations like this. And maybe, just maybe, this time, the story will finally change.